You look around your life and realize you're trapped in a repeating script. The face of the person changes, and the name is different, but the painful dynamic remains exactly the same. It's easy to blame a string of bad luck, or assume the world is simply overrun with manipulative people. But Carl Jung suggested your mind orchestrates these encounters. Until you bring the unconscious to light, it drives your choices, and you call it fate. Your psyche uses these painful encounters to force you to confront unhealed wounds. It repeats the trauma to signal that a part of yourself has been ignored for too long and is now demanding to evolve. This pattern often begins in childhood environments, where certain emotions or behaviors were mocked, punished, or simply invalidated by the adults around you. To survive and fit in, you learn to wear a persona, a psychological mask showing only the parts of yourself that others accept. Everything you had to hide, your anger, weaknesses, and true desires, was banished to the shadow. These repressed traits stay active. The more you play the perfectly good person, the more those hidden forces build up pressure against your conscious mind. When the mind can no longer contain this pressure, it uses projection, where you start seeing your own unacknowledged traits in the people around you. Through synchronicity, your unconscious mind draws you toward people who mirror those hidden wounds, ensuring you are constantly triggered by the very things you tried to bury. You find yourself playing out an old childhood injury on an adult stage, trying to solve an internal problem through an external relationship. When you operate from these unhealed places, you aren't just making choices, you're following invisible scripts that dictate your behavior. Jung called these universal patterns archetypes. When an archetype takes control, it steers your life and influences your reactions without you even realizing it. For example, the hero archetype drives an obsessive need to save toxic people, making excuses for their behavior even as they drain your resources. Alternatively, the wounded child archetype leaves you terrified of rejection, constantly scanning for external approval just to feel safe. Manipulators are often instinctively attuned to these patterns. They recognize the specific behaviors that signal you are operating from one of these scripts. They pick up on how you broadcast a need for validation, allowing them to zero in and exploit that specific psychological opening. As long as these archetypes are in control, you are essentially sending out a signal that invites others to step into the role of the antagonist in your repeating drama. Breaking the cycle requires shifting your focus away from the people you've been trying to change and looking instead at the internal landscape that brought them there. A manipulator's tactics require a specific vulnerability to gain leverage. By identifying the internal wound that allows their behavior to affect you, you remove the hook they use to keep the dynamic alive. Jung called the solution individuation, the difficult process of stripping away your social mask and integrating your shadow to become a psychologically whole person. This means accepting that as an adult, the responsibility for your healing rests entirely with you, rather than waiting for an outside person to fix the damage of your past. Integrating these parts of yourself changes how you interact with others. You find you no longer feel the need to over-explain your boundaries or trade away your peace of mind just to avoid a confrontation. When you stop reacting to a manipulator's provocations, their ability to influence you often stalls. A secure, quiet boundary gives them nothing to latch onto and no emotional reaction to feed their need for control. When the internal wound no longer vibrates in sync with a toxic person's tactics, the relationship loses its utility for them. The cycle breaks because you are no longer providing the specific psychological reactions that their games require to survive.